Good morning. I'm Victoria Moran, and this is Thunder. Somebody was saying that they would really like to see Thunder, and Forbes, who's our dog, come onto the Facebook Live. So started with Thunder. He's a little bit easier to have in one place. Good morning, Thunder. So Thunder is a pigeon, obviously, or a rock dove, as they're also called. I have always been intrigued by pigeons because they are urban, and so am I. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, which I know a lot of people, hi Kendira, who come from great big cities around the world might not think of as a vast urban center, but you know, it's got skyscrapers and professional sports teams. And I happen to have a dad who was also really urban. He came from Detroit and he just knew how to do city. And so everywhere that I've traveled in cities, I've always seen pigeons. So Trafalgar Square in London, they don't allow pigeons anymore, or they don't allow feeding pigeons. But when I would go there as a kid and when I lived there as a teenager, you could go to Trafalgar Square and pigeons would climb all over you. And I've also noticed in Paris, the pigeons are kind of extra fat. And maybe they don't know about the Parisian paradise, or I'm sure it's just a slightly different kind of pigeon. Anyway, Thunder's story is that my daughter Adair, hi Rachel, has a wildlife rehab organization. It's on hold somewhat right now because she's been touring as an aerialist and a stunt performer. But Urban Utopia specializes in saving urban mammals, so squirrels and bunnies and possums. But when the Wild Bird Fund here in New York City, that's a wonderful organization, would kind of be a little bit overpopulated with their birds, they would sometimes call a dare, and that was what happened with Thunder. So as a wildlife rehabber, you're supposed to rehab these beings and then get them back out into the wild. But it just didn't work with Thunder. He just didn't learn to fly. So Adair raised him with a second group of fledglings, all of whom flew off, and he didn't. So they took him to the wildlife avian veterinarian and learned that Thunder is blind in one eye. So he can't steer, and he'll fly up to a certain degree, and then he'll just think, oh my goodness, I can't steer, and falls down. So he has to be a companion animal, and that's what he is. So in the good weather, we go out into the courtyard with him sometimes, and in the not so good weather, he walks around, and somebody is on this Facebook Live, Kendira, who really encouraged me to get him out more. I was worried that the dog would hurt him or something untoward would happen. And she said, you work on that. And the truth is, Thunder and Forbes, our dog, get along pretty well. I would call it more détente than true love. But anyway, that's Thunder. Say hello to everybody. Okay, now we're gonna let him walk around and be a bird. Excuse me. Sorry to disappear from you. I was tending to the family. Good morning. Hi, Beth. Okay, today's quotation is from Creating a Charmed Life, which is the biggest book I ever wrote. Somebody wrote to me once and said, I love all your books, but that Creating a Charmed Life, that's a blessed book. And you know, it is. And I would just invite you right now to think about some of the blessed projects that you've done so far. Something that you put out there into the world that maybe you didn't think was any more extraordinary than what you do all the time, but it turned out to be something that was bigger than you, that had a life of its own. I'd love to see you post about those things if you're willing. So anyway, Creating a Charmed Life was like that for me, and here is the line for today. Doing the next indicated thing means taking the next action life presents, whether you're inspired by the prospect or not. Now, I did not invent doing the next indicated thing. It's been tossed around 12-step programs for years. I don't know who originally said it, but I use it just about every day when I remember, when I have the good sense to remember. And, oh, Glenn, thank you so much for your kind words. So, to me, doing the next indicated thing is the way that I know that I am not alone in the universe. I am connected to some fount of wisdom that when I am willing to just say, okay, what is the next indicated thing, I have never not gotten the message. Now, it's often not something grand and glorious. It's usually something very simple. When I used to have 4 cats, it was often clean the litter box. But whatever that next indicated thing, oh, Lorna Owens down in Florida, hi Lorna. Whatever the next indicated thing is what moves us toward the thing after that and the thing after that, and ultimately to our destiny, to the way that we're going to do the most good in the world, grow our souls, and leave this world knowing that we did this thing. We did the job. We really lived fully and lived up to our potential. So here we are inside in quarantine or semi-quarantine, and the next indicated thing, at least in my world, is often really, really simple these days. And when I can cherish that and embrace it, it gives it a sort of glow that it wouldn't have under ordinary circumstances. I've been thinking a lot today about my adopted city. Hey, Sheila. Sheila's a Main Street Vegan Academy graduate out there in Arizona. I've been thinking about New York City. As I told you earlier, this is not where I grew up, and it wasn't even my first favorite city. On my 18th birthday, I moved to London because that was really where I wanted to be. Couldn't stay because of immigration and such as that, but that idea of being somewhere where everything happens. My first yoga teacher in New York City, Panchali Null, she's also an opera singer and a theater singer, and she said to me once, I sometimes think about leaving, but then I remember the phone could ring and your life could change. So for anybody that's got that kind of spark of wanting that kind of life, that kind of potentially magical life, not guaranteed by any stretch, and certainly you can have a magical life anywhere on God's green earth, but some of us have this spirit that needs to be in places like London or New York, at least for as long as life allows us to be here. So last night, somebody sent me a clip of Glenn Close. So if you are a New Yorker or if you have soft feelings for this city, I would highly recommend that you look for the Glenn Close coronavirus salute to New York. She is somewhere else. She didn't say where. And you could just see in her beautiful, emotive, mega actor style how she was yearning to be in this place that gave her so many opportunities, that nurtured her as a young actor. She described auditioning for one of her first shows and doing poorly. At least she thought she did poorly. So she wrote them a letter and said, I really didn't do my best. Would you give me another chance? And they did. So they brought her in for a different role than she had originally auditioned for. She got the part, and she described going out onto the street in the theater district and just feeling as if she could fly. So that inspired me a lot. You know, I'm big on inspiration. I also posted yesterday 12 songs, or I didn't post, I put it in my newsletter, the 12 songs that lift me up the most. And I gotta tell you, during this time, I need those songs, and I need more. I'm probably gonna post 12 more in next week's newsletter. And if you would like the original list and you don't get the newsletter, just drop a line to my assistant, Jamie. She's at mainstreetveganmedia@gmail.com, and just say song list, and she'll send you that. But I have to say, this morning, I have already listened to the Susan Boyle 2009 Britain's Got Talent audition 3 times, that's such a big one for me, because I know when she stepped out onto that stage, the judges and probably most of the people in the audience just sized her up. They knew immediately where they were going to put her on the hierarchy of who's cool and who isn't, and she was not going to be placed very high until that first note came out of her mouth. So every time I hear it, it's like somebody blows up my aura. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm sure it's something physiological, and it has to do with brain chemicals and adrenaline and all of that. But when I get that kind of inspiration, I just feel like this spiritual, ethereal part of me just got bigger, that it's full of hope and potential and possibility. So that's why I listen to those songs all the time. That is what is floating my boat today here in New York City. This morning I did go online and looked up coronavirus stats New York City to see exactly where things are today, and it was pretty sobering. It is that as of today, 1 in every 200 people is infected with the coronavirus. I presume that also counts people who have recovered from it. And I've also read that people who have recovered are going to be the new elite, because they're going to be the ones who will be out there doing all the creativity and making everything happen for the next several months. But when I thought about that statistic, that's pretty high. I mean, I live in a condominium complex with 240 units. And so that means that theoretically, there are 2 or 3 people close to me that probably are dealing with this situation in a far more personal way than I am. And it just makes me fall in love with my city over and over again. So I would love to know, before we sign off today, what are you in love with? Now, I said what, not who, because I'm sure most of you, many of you, are in love with your spouse, your partner, your main squeeze, and that's wonderful. But is anybody in love with something else? A place, or a passion, or a purpose? So I'm in love with a lot. I am pretty promiscuous in terms of falling in love with stuff. So I am in love with New York City. I am also in love with London. And I'm in love with my hometown of Kansas City. I'm going to go out there in September for the first ever vegan spirituality forum and retreat. You can check that out on the spiritualforum.org. I am in love with my dog, and I'm in love with Thunder the pigeon. I'm learning so many things about how somebody who's so different from me in how he looks, but who's so like me in what he needs. I am in love with the fact that you guys get me up every morning. I had written that little immuno guide and soul soothing tips that I think some of you have downloaded or received. And when I wrote that back in March, I said, you know, you wash your hands all the time, and you may as well wash your face while you're doing it. And I've actually given up wearing makeup so I can wash my face more often. Well, that's no longer true, because I get up every morning and I know that somebody's going to be here, and that means a lot. So the next indicated thing for me for this day is to sign off with you beautiful people and go on to work with the work that I came to this planet to do, which is to write. I'm working on a mini proposal for a book that I just hope is fabulous. So if you're praying people and want to send one my way for the muse to show up and help me write a fabulous mini proposal that I'll get to my wonderful literary agent next week, I would appreciate that. So enjoy this Saturday, enjoy this beautiful holiday weekend, and know that whatever the next indicated thing is for you, it's going to take you to something better. God bless. Bye.